Hi everyone, this is Robert and welcome to IDG Live. Today we are looking at A Night of the Seven Kingdoms because yes, we are finally there. It is going to be going live on Sunday night if you're in America, or Monday morning if you're in Europe, or some other time if you're somewhere else. And it's looking good. Everything I hear is very positive so far. George R. R. Martin is positive about that. We'll get onto that in just one moment. Um, the reviews I've seen, some people have had screeners, have seen them, seen the show in advance. They seem to really like it. Everything I've heard is good, so I'm excited by this. What I will do is just basically treat this like an open Q&A. I know some people are completely new to the stories. Some people have read the stories and know what's going on. I will do the spoiler warning now up front. The stories have been out for a while, so I will be talking about what happens in the stories, which means, well, very probably what happened in the Hedge Knight is what's going to happen in season one of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So that is your spoiler warning. I will be talking about the books, not the show. I haven't seen the show. Maybe I'll get a chance to see it early. Who knows? But as of this moment, I have not. So I do not know any more than you do. But what we will do is we will answer questions from patrons. I will try and answer as many questions from the chat as we're going through. And yeah, we'll just keep on going as long as the questions do. So let's start with a question from Nick from NJ saying, am I the only one who would rather see George R. R. Martin work on the Duncan Egg novellas that he clearly has an affinity for than to have him continue to slog through a fraction of the Winds of Winter every year? So I'm going to use this as, if you don't mind, as I will answer the question, but as a way to go through the other big thing that has happened today, the release of an article. This is Hollywood Reporter, and this is James Hibbard. Now, James Hibbard is someone who has a history of a close relationship with Game of Thrones and that world, and also George R. R. Martin. He wrote a book. You may remember Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon, following up from Game of Thrones, where he had inside interviews with George R. R. Martin himself, the cast, the showrunners, lots of people. That was a very good book, actually. I would highly recommend that if you're interested in understanding what was going on behind the scenes there. But George R. R. Martin did this interview. It would appear a little bit before Christmas, and James Hibbard has now released this in the build up to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And it is, I would say, probably the biggest update on a range of issues that we've had from George R. R. Martin for quite some time. Now, I can't remember who it was. Somebody in the chat last week said, I'm really looking forward to George R. R. Martin's update this year. I think this is George R. R. Martin's update. For those who don't know, he's got a blog. He doesn't ever do a sort of like an official, oh, it's time for my annual update. But around this time of year, like all of us, he does reach this kind of thought process of looking back, what has happened over this last year, looking forward, what are my priorities going forward? And he does normally sort of express that in some way in these few months here. I think this is probably, we may well get some blog posts from him, not for the next few days. He was last seen in Berlin a couple of days ago, and he doesn't tend to blog while he is on his travels. But I think this is a big update, and probably the biggest update that we're going to get for this year. So what I thought I would do was just run through. I put all of this on X. If you're on X, then you can see my tweets. Do we still call them tweets there? I don't know. If you're not, then I shall run through it now. These are my thoughts, but if you want to go and have a look at the article, I would highly recommend you go and do that. So the first thing to say is that he's well. He was. So James Hibbard describes him as being he's thinner. This is something a few people have noted. He has been looking after his health. He's still very sharp. He's still you can see there's a little bit of video footage of him. His mental faculties are all there. He is good, which is great news, because he wasn't a few years ago. We were all a little bit concerned that he was a bit down. not all is well, as we will get onto, but overall, health-wise, as a person, I think we can be grateful. He's 77 now, and for a 77-year-old, he is in rude health. So I think that is the first thing. He sort of jokingly said, maybe you should call the title of this article, George R. R. Martin is not dying. So that's his sense of humour, but I think we take this as a positive. So then he talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, which is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. He says, this is a quote from him, "It turned out very well. I'm very happy with season 1. The casting was a home run." And it's very clear from this and from some other things that the relationship he has with Ira Parker, the showrunner there, is a very positive one. Ira Parker has said he doesn't want to include anything in the show that George R. R. Martin does not want, which is, I think, heartening for us book fans. And George R. R. Martin, all the way through, has been very positive. So I think we should be happy about this. This is a good thing. This naturally went on to a little bit of a discussion about the Dunk and Egg stories, because he's only written 3. And he is very aware that if they're going to do 1 a year, which is the current plan, then that's not long before he has to have finished writing some more Dunk and Egg stories if he wants to stay ahead of this. And I think his history with this kind of thing means that he does definitely want to stay ahead of this. Now, he did, I mean, there wasn't anything hugely new. He name-checked a couple of stories that he started writing a while ago, the ones that we know as The She-Wolves of Winterfell and The Village Hero. He's mentioned another couple at various other points. So there wasn't anything particularly new there, but his acknowledgement that he wants to stay ahead of this curve is definitely there. While he was talking about TV shows, he also talked about other potential TV shows. Now, there was a mention of the Sea Snake show, which has been rumbling through, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years now in early development. It's never got a green light. It has moved over to an animated show, which I entirely understand for budgetary reasons. The fact that it's mentioned seems to imply it's still up there as one of the things we might expect to see at some point soon, but no particular update. One big update, though, was on what they kind of threw out there a year or two ago, was this idea of an Aegon's Conquest show or something. And now we're told that there are 2 different things going on with this. We're told it is being developed by, I'm quoting here, being developed by HBO as a possible drama series and by Warner Brothers film team as a mammoth Dune-sized feature film. I mean, this is positive. I think the positive thing here is that they're clearly keen on this. And so they've got a number of... It's not a matter of, are they going to do this? They are going to do this. We are going to see an Aegon's Invasion something. The issue is, what are we going to see? Is it going to be a film? Is it going to be a TV show? They haven't yet decided. The fact that they haven't decided is perhaps the negative here, because it means that it's still a little way away. They still haven't finished. They haven't got a complete script for either thing that they've allowed to say, wow, that's what I want to do. We're going with that. So we're still a little way away from that. But I think we can now be pretty confident that we will be getting an Aegon's Invasion something. We also got an update on the Jon Snow show. You may remember this from a while ago, that Kit Harington went and pitched to HBO, George R. R. Martin, an idea for a spin-off, a sequel rather than a prequel to Game of Thrones, the TV. So, to be clear, when we're talking sequels, these are sequels to the TV show. So what happened on the TV show leads to what happens in the sequel. This isn't, therefore, what happens after the books, because the books will end up in different places. Now, he pitched that, and it was in development for a while. I was about to say my sources tell me, makes me sound like a serious journalist. What I heard was that they listened to this, they being HBO and George R. Martin's team, um, out of honouring Kit Harington and what he did for the show, not expecting this to be a fully worked up and good plan, but actually the pitch was surprisingly good. He had some really good people there. If you ever watched, I think it was called Gunpowder. This was Guy Fawkes' show, which I think was a BBC production a few years ago, that he starred in, but also I think produced. The people who worked with him on that were part of this pitch. And anyway, they pitched it, and then it all went a bit quiet, and then it was sort of quietly dropped. We have some more information on this now. Now, the information is, and again, I will quote, it says, what this was going to be was a tale of Jon Snow living alone as a broken man with PTSD. Having chased off his direwolf ghost and thrown away his sword Longclaw, Jon spent his time building cabins and burning them back down again. Harington also wanted Jon to die and to avoid being a hero. Now, HBO, having thought deeply about this, apparently decided that this was a bit of a downer. I think the word was bummer that they used in the article, and decided not to go with it. So that's why they didn't go with it in the end. Is it was just a bit too downcast. Perhaps, and the article does speculate that perhaps this was Kit Harington who did himself go through some quite tough times after the end of Game of Thrones. He's been quite open about this, and perhaps this was him working his way through this, through the character as well. But anyway, they decided not to go with this. But George R. R. Martin has said elsewhere that he is, or that there are sequels potentially in the works. And we only knew of this one sequel, which made us go, well, what else is going on here? And it turns out that this Jon Snow idea, yes, it was shelved, but they didn't want to give up on the idea of taking some characters that were in the main Game of Thrones show, and then looking at what happens next. And so apparently they've now got, it seems quite early days. This feels like, and this isn't anything in the article, this is just my instant reaction. This feels like the kind of thing that they're just pushing out there just to see what people might think. But we have a name attached, who is Kwok Dang Tran, who I do not know. I have to admit, I've got literally no idea about this person. Whether they're excellent or not excellent, I do not know. Happy for the chat to tell me a little bit more. But the early idea, we're told, is to move this action away from north of the wall and to put it to Essos, and then maybe throw in Arya. Now, is that Jon and Arya, or just Arya? Where in Essos? What would they be doing? We have no more information. So this, as I say, this feels to me like a very early bit of idea development. And I would be fascinated what you think. I'll try and pick up a few comments in the chat as we go. Actually, tell you what, here's me wittering away. Why don't I try and I'll pick up at a few things in the chat as we're going through, just to see how what people might be thinking. Kolnitsky saying Happy New Year, and to you. And Patrick Gerbus saying, with all due respect to Kit, that pitch idea does seem a bit too downer or doomer with zero catharsis. Perma Strisman says, actually sounds solid. I do not believe he would have had such an original idea for a Jon sequel. Shame they canned it. Trainer Surface says, the Snow show sounds like it would have been hard going. And who else have we got now? Ghost deserves better, says a Greek word. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I get that. And Tommy of Then saying Gunpowder was a good miniseries, 3 longish episodes, I think. Yeah, Gunpowder was good. I mean, I mentioned that just in passing, and apparently it's on HBO in the US. So if you missed it, do check it out. Yeah, it was good. And what else is Alt Shift X? Justin Norino. What if that's how it's pronounced? Saying I saw that Alt Shift X has watched the new show. Yeah, there are a few different people have. Do go and check on. Always give a shout out to Alt Shift X. Do go and check that one out. Yeah, okay, that's good. Let's go back to. Just wanted to see the general mood of the chat there. Let's go back to this. And when we're talking about spin-offs, then obviously went on to House of the Dragon. And what is George R. Martin's relationship to it now? And again, I shall quote his relationship to Ryan Condal. George R. Martin said, "It's worse than Rocky. It's abysmal." And the article also quoted an alleged quote from George R. Martin saying that they had a long Zoom call, I think it was, between the two of them and HBO execs, and George R. Martin said, "This is not my story any longer." We also have, and this is one of the more depressing parts of the whole update, as we said. We also had this was just a detail, but I think quite a telling one. Did you remember? You may remember if you follow George R. Martin's Not a Blog closely. A while ago, there was a post he did that got taken down that was critical of House of the Dragon, basically. And one detail we've got from this article is that apparently that was supposed to be, in his mind, that was the first of 6 posts he was going to do critiquing House of the Dragon. It was taken down, it sounds. HBO saw it go up, rang George R. Martin's office, and George R. Martin's assistant took it down, and George R. Martin, that doesn't sound like he was angry about this. He completely understood. What follows is a little bit uncertain, in that the article says that George R. Martin was brought back on board, though when asked about it, he says, "I can't talk about that." My take from all of this is that there is a breakdown in relations between Ryan Condal and George R. Martin, which is a shame because they started out actually quite close. As far as we can tell, season 1, a lot of to and fro. Ryan Condal did take on a lot of George R. Martin's comments. By season 2, that was starting to slow down. By the time we get to season 3, then nothing. Now, Ryan Condal has not. We should give him a right of reply. He has said a few things, but has not 100% addressed this. So there is another side to this story, which we should always remember. But I think it is fair to say that season 3, which will be coming out probably in June, is going to have happened without any input from George R. Martin. Now, you can decide for yourself what you think about that, but I think that is the state of affairs, and it appears likely that season 4 will also be without his input. Him being back on board, my understanding is not that he's got a huge input anymore. I think it's that he's back on board, not criticizing it. And maybe some other things, who knows? But I think we shouldn't expect George R. R. Martin to be actively criticizing House of the Dragon, but also he's not there having any input at all into it. Then let's get on to The Winds of Winter. Now, The Winds of Winter, we are told in this article that he is about 1,100 pages in. Now, 1,100, this is another slightly depressing section, I'm afraid, of this update. 1,100 pages is about what he said for the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, I mean, he said 1,200 pages before. I think it's fair to say that in terms of progress over the last 3 to 4 years, there's not been any, which doesn't mean that he's not juiced better chapters. He gives a little bit, the article does go into a little bit of insight when he's talking about how a day might go, when he would write something and then he'd wake up the next morning and he'd read that chapter and go, well, that's not good enough. And then he'd rewrite it and then he'd leave it to one side and go off to somebody else's chapter and think, oh, now I've got to start this one. And it just seems hard work for him. I mean, your heart does go out to him. He seems to be struggling with this. And he does, unprompted, he gives, as he often does, he gives a little story. He gives a little anecdote. If you've ever watched any of his interviews, he does this quite a lot. If he's asked something kind of deep that he doesn't immediately know how to articulate the response to, he will often go into an anecdote about something. And the anecdote he goes into here is about Frank Herbert, the writer of Dune. Now, he says that what happened there was he listened to him talking about how towards the end of his life, he'd fallen out of love with writing Dune. But then his publisher said, when he put an idea for something else to his publisher, he says, "Okay, yeah, we'll publish that. You're a great writer. We know that there's a market. This was the advance. But if you do another Dune novel, here's the advance we give you for that," which was like 6 times the amount. And Frank Herbert felt locked into writing Dune, even though he'd lost his passion for it. And apparently George R. Martin tells this anecdote and then just like falls silent. At which point, obviously, the interviewer has to go, so do you emote with this? Is that what you're trying to say here? Is that you're falling out of love with it? And he is clear he's not falling out of love with writing The Winds of Winter. He does want to finish it. He does still love the world. But he is, and I think the only phrase here is feeling locked into it. He's feeling as if this is not the thing that he's perhaps most productive at right now, but he feels this is the thing everybody wants him to do. And again, as I say, this is quite a sad thing, is that he's there with this great masterpiece, that he's not feeling it right now. I think that's the only way we can discuss is to say he's not feeling it. He does, however, we get a couple of it's kind of like, well, actually, one other thing on that I should probably say is that he does address this issue of is there a plan? What if, are you going to finish it? And he says, look, if I don't, there's no contingency plan here. He's not lined up another writer to finish this off. This isn't like Robert Jordan did with The Wheel of Time. If he doesn't finish it, he uses The Mystery of Edwin Drood as an example, which is the famously unfinished story by Charles Dickens. And he says it'll be like that. If he does not finish this, then there's nobody that's immediately picking up the reins. So that's like the first thing to say. Second thing probably is to emphasize that he is intending to finish this himself. And we get a couple of entirely random, but if there weren't all this other stuff here, as I say, this is a huge info dump for George R. R. Martin. If there wasn't all this other stuff, we would be talking about these next two things for an entire live stream, I can assure you. He said, I don't see a happy ending for Tyrion. His whole arc has been tragic from the first, which is fascinating because obviously on the show he did have a sort of happy ending. He ended up as Hand of the King. He was the Lord of Casterly Rock. George R. R. Martin doesn't see a happy ending for him. So, yeah, some other time we need to talk about that. What does Tyrion not having a happy ending actually mean? And then the other thing he says about the end, he says, I was going to have Sansa die, but she's been so appealing in the show, maybe I'll let her live. Which again is fascinating, because I think a lot of us were kind of working on the assumption that something close-ish to what happened in the show to Sansa would be happening. Her arc would be taking her all the way back to Winterfell and a place of safety there. But George R. R. Martin initially, it would appear, wasn't thinking that she would survive this story. But now he's thinking maybe she will. Then we get, and I think I'll probably end with this. I think quite a telling kind of summary of him when he's thinking about his priorities and taking all of the stuff we've had so far. He says this. He says, I have to write more Dunk and Egg. There's supposed to be another Fire and Blood book too. I do think if I can just get some of these other things off my back, I could finish The Winds of Winter pretty soon. It's been made clear to me that Winds is the priority, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for that. So I said here before, it would not surprise me if we get another Dunk and Egg, or even Blood and Fire, Fire and Blood Part 2, before we get The Winds of Winter. George R. R. Martin has been very, very subtly hinting over the last 2 or 3 years that he's thinking about these things, and he knows that we want him to do The Winds of Winter, but he's thinking about these other things as well. So my voice is just my voice. For me, I actually, and this kind of brings us back to the question we had that kind of started this, which was from Nick from NJ, says that asking, am I the only one who would rather see George R. R. Martin work on the Dunk and Egg novellas that he clearly has an affinity for than having continue to slog through a fraction of The Winds of Winter every year? I think the painful truth is he's not making progress with The Winds of Winter. And it's pretty obvious. I think we all know this. He has been making some progress, a few pages here and there, a chapter here and there, but in the last 3 or 4 years, that's not pushed the whole thing on. He does find Dunk and Egg and Fire and Blood more easy to write, but he feels the pressure to write The Winds of Winter. So I don't know, from my perspective just here, yeah, I kind of want to give him the freedom to do that. I mean, he doesn't need my permission. He doesn't need your permission. He could do whatever he wants to. But I think, from my perspective, yeah, if that's what he needs, then do it. I don't like the idea that he could be sat there feeling this pressure to do a thing that he feels locked in on, when actually he could be having the creative juices flowing elsewhere. So anyway, that's what it was. It felt bittersweet. That whole interview felt 100% bittersweet to me. It was this was a man who, I don't know, he's well in himself, better than he has been. I think that comes across. He's looking after his health a lot more. He's excited by things. I think a lot of the interview took place in a bar that he'd opened up, which is next to the cinema, which he owns, which is next to the bookshop, which he owns, which is like, he's got a lot of things going on that he enjoys, and I'm very happy for that. But at the same time, he's feeling the pressure, and yeah. I want him to do whatever he needs to do not to feel that pressure. Anyway, that's my take on that. I'll quickly flick through the chat. Any comments we got here? Tommy of Then, ultimately, he must have the creative freedom to be an artist. Anything less is an assembly line. Yep, I agree. Winter of Wolves saying he's writing for 2 audiences. One that, hang on, where's the thing gone? That's read the books and finished, and us who read them as they come out. Duncan Egg, Fire and Blood 2 before Winds of Winter will lay more clues and be a better puzzling out of the story for us. Let's Kelso TN say, I hear mention of Dan often, but have no idea who that is. Anyone want to fill me in? Dan is my dog. Dan the dog, who used to be down here. He's getting older these days, but so he takes himself up to bed. But he occasionally makes appearances. Hasn't done for a while. I will try and put a picture up over on Instagram or something like that. Have a quick flick through. K, he clearly has the freedom to do that and has done for a long time. It's refreshing now he's honest about it. Yeah, I think the honesty is a. This feels like he was letting a lot off with his chest. As I say, he does do sort of an update ish once a year ish, but this certainly does feel like he was just telling people what he was really feeling, which is reassuring and a good place for him to be in. Joe Magician's here in the chat. Hey, Joe Magician. Great to see you. If you don't know Matt, Joe Magician, do go and check his channel. I'm sure somebody in the chat will put a link to his channel. Excellent channel. Carl Karsnark saying George R. Martin owes us nothing. Let him do what he wants, but not finishing A Song of Ice and Fire is what he will be known for most. Sadly, I mean it's true. Maura Lee, hi, great to see you. Saying just a show of love and support. You are the best. Hugs to Dan, the handsome dog. Yeah, thank you. Great to see you. J.S. Holgerson saying George R. Martin did give Ira 12 outlines for Duncan Egg, I believe. Yeah, so this was another thing which wasn't in this article, but a sort of recent news, I guess. So Ira Parker, the showrunner for Duncan Egg, A Night of Seven Kingdoms, he said that he sat down with George R. Martin. George R. Martin gave him an outline for 10 to 12 more Duncan Egg stories. Now, it's not 100% clear. George R. Martin has previously said, he said a number of different numbers for how many different Duncan Egg stories there are going to be. One number that he's thrown out, which we've had for a while, is 12. We've obviously got 3. Is this 10 to 12 more than the 3? Are we now looking at up to 15? It's not 100% clear, but it does, I think, show that if he's got outlines for them, that he has at least plotted it out, which I will take as a positive. Shelley J saying, all in all, it does not sound like his heart is in the Winds of Winter. I mean, I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah, he wasn't enthusiastic and excited about it in this interview, at least. Joe Magician saying, I think he should write another tough voyaging. He's clearly not happy trying to write in Westeros and needs a break. I mean, he needs a break of some kind. I think he needs some. It does kind of feel like the language he was using, that I have been told that the Winds of Winter is my priority, feeling locked into it. That language is somebody who feels a pressure to do a thing. I do kind of feel like someone need to say to him that just write what you want for a year. Just go off, be creative, and then come back. Hopefully, you'll regain the excitement for this world. If not, go and do the things you are excited about. Harsh Mellow saying, Book Sansa has finally come into her own. She's about to blossom. Let's going. Pixie Lips saying, Sansa dying made sense once she lost Lady. I kind of understand that. Harsh Mellow saying, Herbert finished Dune. Well, I mean, the Dune world and Dune story carried on. Obviously, with his son and Kevin J. Anderson. Let's have a saying, hope he can Shelley J, hope he can find a way to follow his heart and tune out the pressure. It seems like a big burden. Andrew K saying, I personally wouldn't say he owes us nothing. I view it as a symbiotic relationship of sorts, but it shouldn't be toxic or mega pressure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like owing. I mean, I don't think owing is the word I would use, but J Magician saying, I cannot relate to someone sitting on a project for a while and not making progress on it just because you're burnt out. Nope. I think that's a tongue-in-cheek Joe Magician there. Joe Magician also saying, yeah, George has two modes he writes in. He either writes an incredible amount, like his brain is on fire really quickly, or he writes nothing at all. There's nothing in between for him. Yeah, there was another thing, actually, I didn't mention in that article. There's so much in that article. Seriously, if somebody could put a link in the chat or something, that'd be great, because I want to give James Herbert James Hibbard. I was on June there for a moment. The credit and hat tip for it. But yeah, there was another thing he did. You may remember back during COVID, he took himself up to his mountain retreat, a cabin in the mountains, and did, it would appear, make a lot of progress. However, that meant that he was away from his partner for a very long time, which made him sad. And so he couldn't carry on doing that. And I think that's fair. Right. Okay. So I think that's me largely caught up in the chat. Did I miss any? I am second saying no questions, just haven't been able to make a live in a few years and wanted to drop some love and appreciation. Well, welcome back. Great to see you. I haven't been able to make a live in a few years. It's fantastic to see. I hope you can pop around every now and then. Right. Carl Karsnark, if you're watching this live, Carl Karsnark has dropped a link to the article in the live chat. If you are watching this back a little bit later on YouTube, I will put a link down in the description, or possibly in the pinned comment, something like that, so you can have a look at that. Right, but that was not what we were initially going to be looking at today. We were going to be looking at A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Gem Magician clarifying, very much tongue-in-cheek, Robert, yes. I just finished my last video from House of the Dragon Season 2 and put it up this week about Otto Hightower. Wow. Yeah, that's a little while ago, House of the Dragon Season 2. House of the Dragon Season 3, probably June-ish. Right, let's go to Sir Steve the O saying, hello, good people. No question here that came to mind on this. I'm just thrilled that this story is coming to the screen. I understand why George R. Martin says it's his best writing. PS, and this is just this is public service here. Are there any South Africans who know when or where this will stream? DSTV or Showmax no longer has HBO content. I understood they renegotiated content for 2026. It's not in the immediate pipeline. Does anyone have any inside information? So this is for Sir Steve the O and anyone in South Africa. If you know how to watch it in South Africa, put it down in the comments or something, so we can make sure people can watch it. But Per Marcus Risman saying, hello, Robert, from a rainy, snowy north. Two questions. Firstly, when House of the Dragon dropped, we got a bit more lore that George R. R. Martin seemingly endorsed. Do you think we will get lore like that in this season as well? And do you hope for something in particular? So the lore I think you're referring to is the confirmation that Aegon did indeed have a vision, and that vision was what, or at least a large part of what prompted him to invade the Seven Kingdoms, invade Westeros. Now, that was not something completely new to the fandom. We had discussed it before. In fact, he had done, I think it was in the build-up or the promo for Fire and Blood Part 1, he released there was a mini video of him saying a few things, and he said he did a sort of, as some say, that Aegon had a vision that prompted him to invade, and we all went, oh, really? Is that what we're going to get in Fire and Blood? But it wasn't really developed in Fire and Blood, so it was like, oh, was just sort of a random thing he said, and there was something. In fact, I think Joe Magician did, as he's here. Happy coincidence. In the chat, I will give him due credit. I think he ran with that and did a few very good videos on that very subject. But then George R. Martin confirmed, if you remember, we had this whole, it's quite a big theme through House of the Dragon, this idea of Aegon's dream, Aegon's vision, the dream, the Song of Ice and Fire, etc., that all came down from Aegon the Conqueror. And George R. R. Martin did basically say, "Yep, this is cleared by me." We haven't got any details on that. He didn't sort of say, "Yeah, well, this is the transcript of what that vision was," or anything like that. But we did get a thumbs up from the big man himself. So, are we to expect anything like that with Dunk and Egg? I think answer will be no. But that's not because he isn't brought into this show. That isn't because this show isn't going to have lore in it. But it's a lore light show. Let's put it that way. The story itself was written as a kind of a standalone novella between books. It was never really intended. I mean, initially, I'm sure he had thoughts, oh, I could do more on this as he was writing it. But it wasn't intended to be like a great big lore dump of extra information. And that, I think, is part, as we all know, part of the beauty of Dunk and Egg is the fact that this isn't about these huge issues. Now, that said, we do get a lot of extra bits of information. The Mystery Knight, we get extra bits of information about the Second Blackfire Rebellion and things like that. We get introduced to Bloodraven in a way that we hadn't really before. So there is a lot of extra stuff in there, but the Hedge Knight itself is quite contained. It's quite small. It's deliberately focused down. I mean, I wouldn't say it's focused in. A lot of people are saying it's focused in on the small folk. We're still dealing with royalty here, and that's quite a big theme of what's going on. The lords are going to be playing a major part, but we do also see a lot more of what's going on with the small folk. So I think the short answer is I'm not expecting any massive a revelation from George R. R. Martin that, oh, this is a new thing that's going on here. This is something you never knew before, but maybe he will. But I'm not expecting it. Let's go to a question. I'll pair Marcus Risman. Actually, a follow up to that was just saying, who's your favourite minor character in the novellas? And this, I'll throw this to the chat straight away. I'll pick up on this, and there's a lot of really fun characters that they run into. Per Marcus Risman says, for me, it's Septon Sefton, a flamboyant wine hag prone to gossip. Count me in any day of the week. Yeah, so he appears in the Swan Sword. He's there with Lady Rohan Weber. He's basically their local Septon. And he likes a glass of wine. He loves talking about gossiping, basically. But he also seems to be quite a good person, and he goes out, tries to stop conflict, and things like that. So yeah, I absolutely agree. He's a fantastic character. I would say I am a fan of Maynard Plum. If you know, you know. But I think the character I'm most looking forward to in the Hedge Knight, who has not appeared in any of the trailers, is Diran the Drunken, who is a Targaryen, and he gets dragon dreams. And he gets dragon dreams so strong that he tries to drown them out by getting drunk. And his story, it strikes me as hugely tragic. And he don't want to do too many spoilers. I've already said the spoilers for the show what happens in the books is that he appears relatively early on and does basically come out with a whole prophecy for Dunk that comes true, and but not necessarily in the way that he might immediately think. And he is such a fascinating character because we don't know huge amounts about what happens to him after this. He appears in this story. He appears a couple of times in this story, and then after that, not much until his untimely death. So I'm fascinated to see a bit more of him, and I'm particularly fascinated by the fact that, as I say, the actor did appear on the red carpet in this Berlin premiere that they did a day or two ago. But I think that's the first time that he's kind of appeared, which makes me wonder what are they hiding something? I don't know. He's the character I'm most fascinated to see. Um, so let's have a quick flick through. Gem Magician. No, I did not see the episodes yet. I haven't got screeners. As I said, I'm very open about this. I want screeners because I would love to see this. I will happily say that I know a number of our colleagues, if we can say fellow YouTubers, have got them. I haven't. I don't know why. If I did get them, I would definitely watch them. But I will tell people if I do. So the people I have actually, I should probably do this, and I should probably say reviews are out there. If you want to go and have a look at reviews, I kind of focused in on reviews from people, nerds like us who know the lore deeply, who I can just look at and say, I trust you to know whether or not this is sticking, not just to like the words, but also the spirit of the books, and then also like the geek adjacent publications, if you know what I mean, the ones who that they liked Game of Thrones, and now they're reviewing this. I would like to know what the wider audience might feel. So I sort of focused in on those reviews when I was looking around at different reviews, and I have to say, overall, everyone's positive. I think everyone is just on both groups of people is like, yeah, this is a really good show. I like it. The lore people, the geeks like us, have said it's very accurate to the books. They have added in extra stuff, but what they've added in is with a little asterisk of one thing I think I want to talk about in just one moment. What they've added in is in keeping. And it sort of adds to it the fact that they are there. They're at this tourney. There's lots of stuff going on. So there's lots of characters doing different things that in the novellas themselves you can't talk through every single person they bump into. Here you can show it all, and that comes across really well. And some bits of dialogue have been literally cut and pasted into the script, which is good. And they've added in a couple of little extra things. Now, so that's from the sort of the nerds that I trust. From the wider sort of community of people, I've heard that it's engaging. I've heard that it's really well acted. There are some fantastic performances. I hear good things about Steely Pate. I hear good things about Lionel Baratheon, and of course the main two actors. And Baylor Breakspear apparently really good. The Duncan Egg apparently works really well. I hear that it's funny. I hear that it's light. It's all the things I want it to be. So that's what I've heard in terms of the reviews. The little asterisk that I said I would come back to, the only thing I've heard as a sort of an uncertainty, and I've heard this from a few different people, is that the style of humor when you read the stories with Duncan Egg is it's very character driven, very whimsical. It's almost sort of classic sitcom, theoretical sitcom in that this is about characters, and the characters that we know in places, and we know how they're going to be reacting, and we're enjoying their reactions to different things. We see Dunk is in this situation, and we know he's going to be doing that, and then we know he's going to be thinking, "Oh, Dunk the Lunk, thick as a castle wall," and that's a lot of the humour that is there. Apparently, this has been supplemented by extra, and the word I've heard used a couple of times is bawdy, Bawdy humor, which is in fitting with the more sort of small folk kind of feel for the story, but perhaps isn't as apparent in the stories themselves. So that's the only sort of asterisk I've had, or uncertainty I've had. Let's have a quick flick through. Let's. Andrew K saying, like anything, I just wait and watch for ourselves. It's subjective but optimistic. Yeah, I'm also optimistic. Shelley J saying I'm on the Baylor train as well, but generally super excited to watch and rewatch. Guy Incognito saying I hadn't clicked the bell on this channel. That explains the lack of alert. Yeah, you should do. I don't think I've said this for about 5 years. If you want alerts for when I go live, then click the bell. You may have clicked the bell on my main channel, but not on this channel. Do it. And while I'm doing this, I should always remember to do these things. If you are here watching live, could you just show a little bit of love to the moderators? They are amazing. The reason why this is such an uplifting place, the reason why it's such a safe place for you to say what you like about positive things about the shows and the books that we love, is because of the atmosphere that's been created by those moderators. So if you could show them some love, I would hugely appreciate it. I also wish to show some appreciation, not just to them, but also to my patrons. Thank you, patrons. I can't do what I do without your support, and this is part of the reason why I frame these live streams around your questions. So thank you very much. Parsnok saying, I will gladly sleep my way to the top of HBO executive ranks if that's what it takes to get screeners. I'm willing to do that for Robert. Well, you're very kind. Thank you very much. Joe Magician's got the season already. It was lovely. I will take that as your review. But apparently you've got a review going up tomorrow. Well, then do go and watch that. I think that's you'll send me the access form. There's an access form? I don't know. I don't know how this industry works. I worked out the other day that I've got a hit rate of 20% on getting screeners. Of all the shows I've ever covered, all the seasons of the shows, I get given screeners 20% of the time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm good at being a YouTuber. I really don't. Anyway, Lionel Baratheon, Brian Valco says, Brian Valco says, Lionel Baratheon, I have a soft spot when George R. R. Martin names a character where he changes one letter in a regular name to a Y. Yeah, I know what you think you mean with that. It's quite fun. Let's go to have a quick. Carl Carsnock, you do not need to sleep with Joe Magician. It's okay. And Mark Glenn saying, I'm not interested in a show centered around Arya. Asking if I'm concerned about so much of Song of Ice and Fire material being produced. You know what? I'm actually not, for the simple reason that I think HBO aren't going to saturate the market. I saw somewhere quite recently, and I can't remember who it was. It was someone in HBO or somewhere like that saying that they looked at, and whether you agree with this or not is entirely up to you, they looked at things like Star Wars and Marvel and thought, we don't want to go down the route where there's a gazillion things every year. We just want one or two things a year. Event TV still, which seems to be what they're doing here. So for the time being, if you want to sort of map this out for the next 2 or 3 years, the idea is Dunk and Egg can be once a year. It's only 6 episodes. They're short episodes. And they they frankly need to be filming them before the actors get too old. So that's the idea. Is that's going to be once a year. Um, House of the Dragon has been confirmed to only be 4 seasons. So we've got this season coming up here, and then nothing in 27, and then another one, the last one in 2028. Um, I'm expecting, therefore, something else to pick up after House of the Dragon. So in 2029, maybe even 2030, I don't know. That's when we might expect to get something like Aegon's Invasion or the Sea Snake stuff. Because, and I know that sounds like a long way away, but if they've not started, if they've not greenlit something, then realistically it's going to take a year from a green light. Even if they did that now, it's going to take a year for a green light to go all the way through finalizing the script, getting all of the producers and hiring the camera crews and doing the set visits and getting actors in. If they moved fast, it would take them a year. So this would be early next year before they're even ready to film something. Maybe it'll take them 6 months or a year to do the filming, and then another while to be doing post-production. You're not going to get something before 2028, probably 2029, even if you greenlit it now. So I don't think we're going to have. We're not going to be awash with a Song of Ice and Fire TV content. I think we will have one or two things per year for the foreseeable future. I'm very aware, I don't tend to get involved in talking about this too much because I don't honestly know what's going on with it all. But there are moves afoot with Netflix buying HBO, Warner Brothers. I don't even know. There's stuff going on there. But the headline on that is, if you're like me, you just like watching good TV. Um, it's Nothing's going to change. This is going to be going through courts and things for a little while yet, and even after that, the whole commissioning process takes a little while, so you're not going to see any change for a few years yet. Andrew K saying Duncan Egg series hopefully be annual release to fill in the gaps for now. Yeah, so they're going to release it annually. This is the plan. So we've got 3 years of Duncan Egg. If George R. Martin, fingers crossed, if George R. Martin does manage to write some more Duncan Egg things, then they may well keep going. But do not forget, with Duncan Egg, this is going through their lifetimes. So whereas probably the two that he name checked, we're getting slightly sidetracked again back into what George R. Martin was saying in that article, but the two that he name checked there in that article were what we know as the She-Wolves of Winterfell, which isn't going to be the final title, but that's the working title we've got, and the Village Hero. Both of those are looking like they happen in the next year or two of Duncan Egg's life. So we're still talking young Dunk and still a boy Egg, and they could perhaps potentially follow on with the same actors in the next 2 years after that. But if we've got how many, a total of 12, say, over their lifetimes, then some of them will be decades in the future. That mean that they will live for a long time after this, and so there will be time jumps. Now, the question is, do you get new actors in? If the books are there, if the stories are written, do you get new actors in? Do you wait for these actors to age up? What do you want to do with that? So, yeah, I think we've got 3 years worth of Duncan Egg, and after that, it's almost anyone's guess what's going to happen. Joe Magician saying you sent the link to my email. Well, thank you very much. I had to reapply. HBO treats each show season as a new access, so you have to apply for each season. Probably why you didn't get anything. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's yeah, it's news to me. I will see what I can do. Yeah. If I get them, you're to thank. So thank you very much indeed. I hugely appreciate it. Right. let's go back to some questions here from my patrons. Rassler saying, good day, Robert. Hope you and Dan the dog are well. We are, thank you. Bloodraven is not mentioned in the first novel, perhaps because George had yet to finalise those details. Do you think the show should add some additional references to him this season in some form or another, just to set him up for the future and help plant the seeds for TV-only audiences? And GTM similarly says, good evening to you. While I certainly don't expect to see Bloodraven in this series, I do wonder if we'll hear little mentions of him, as his shadow looms quite significantly over the other two stories, particularly in The Swan Sword. So I guess I was just curious if we will see the common folks' mistrust of Bloodraven seeded here ahead of the next series. Well, let me answer the wider question there, but first I'll give you a little bit of a let's do a family tree for one moment. At this moment in time, we've got quite a large family tree for the Targaryens. No dragons, but quite a lot of Targaryens. And at the time of the Hedge Knight, season 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, we have King Geer II on the throne. Good king. Broadly speaking, this was a time of peace and plenty for the Seven Kingdoms. There were a few years back, 13 years, I think, off the top of my head. 13 years ago, we had the Blackfire Rebellion. He was the king at that time, and after that, the remnants of the Blackfire Rebellion had all gone off over to Essos, and so we had a period of sort of peace. Now, during that time, he had not during that time, before then, he had 4 children, 4 sons, and his eldest son and heir, therefore, was this guy called Baelor. Now, spoilers again, this is Baelor Breakspear. Now, he appears in The Hedge Knight, and he is generally considered to be a good thing. He seems, and he comes across very well in the story, and people seem to think, yeah, this is what a king should be like. And he was the hand of the king. Now, he dies, and this is all in the year 209 AC, where the Hedge Knight happens. This is a huge thing. The heir has died, but it's okay because he's got 2 sons. Then, if we move forward a few months, same year, 209 AC, the Great Spring Sickness happens. Now, this catches everyone by surprise. This is like a sort of a plague. And the Great Spring Sickness kills lots of people, small folk, huge amounts. It doesn't hit Dawn, which or the Vale of Arryn, I think, because Dawn basically shut its borders. And that's good because that's where Dunk and Egg were at the time. But it does take out several Targaryens, including King Geer II and the 2 sons of Baelor, the heir. So suddenly we've got an issue where in the space of a few months, the king, the heir, and then the next heir, and then the next heir after that all die in this really short period of time, which brings Aerys the First to the throne. He doesn't have any children, but he comes to the throne while the Great Spring Sickness is happening, and he puts Bloodraven in as his hand of the king. So that causes some issues, it has to be said, because there's 2 more sons, and people are saying, well, hang on, Aerys perhaps should have put 2 more brothers, I should say, to put one of his 2 brothers in. One of them people don't really rate, but the other one is a guy called Maekar, who feels he should have been made hand of the king, and then goes off in a bit of a grump when he's not made hand of the king. So that's all to come. For this story, the Hedge Knight, season 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. What we've got here is a situation where Bloodraven, who is he's a distant cousin, basically. Nowhere near the throne. He's nowhere near the line of succession. He was one of the great bastards. He was not. Yes, people will have known about him. He will have had a big reputation. He played a huge part in the Blackfire Rebellion, the first Blackfire Rebellion, but he was not Hand of the King. So, yes, we might theoretically think that we should get some passing references to him, but he is not the main event at the moment among the Targaryens. Baelor is the main event. We've got, with the king himself, Daemon II is the main event, and then his heir is the main event after him. So Bloodraven is not center of the action at this moment in time. Would I like a couple of references? Yeah, I would, because he will become very important in later seasons. But I don't think he should be a big part of this story. Now, in terms of what you said there, no, he wrote this story actually relatively early on, before he'd even thought up in any kind of form, significant form, the Blackfire Rebellions. So, Bloodraven, although yes, we've got the Three-Eyed Crow appearing in book 1, and this was clearly a part of all of this. He was this kind of ephemeral figure. The importance of him was not developed at all by the time he was writing this story. So, should we have references to Bloodraven? I would like a passing reference or two, but I think it would not be in keeping with the world that we've got there right then for him to be like this menacing figure over everything. He is not. He is not Hand of the King at this moment in time. He is a famous Targaryen, but not the main event. Right, DZM or DZM Daley saying, sorry if this is off topic. Harry Potter at the moment are releasing a full cast version of the audiobooks. If they did this with Dunk and Egg, who would you wish to play the main characters? I mean, this is the kind of thing I always struggle with this whenever people ask me for sort of like, oh, who do you want cast as this person or that person? What I will say first of all is that the audiobooks for Dunk and Egg, they're read by Harry Lloyd, who you may well know as he was Viserys Targaryen in season 1 of Game of Thrones. And I think his audio narration of the Dunk and Egg stories is as good a matchup of narrator to story that I know. I listen to quite a few audiobooks. I do on my dog walks. That's something I do quite a lot. So I listen to quite a few different audiobooks, and I think he absolutely nails it. But what he nails most, as you might expect, given his history as Viserys, is Aerion. I do have to admit, I do wonder whether they might just, if they did it, do the cast of the TV show. I don't know if that's been done before, but I think it would be quite fun to have an audio book with the cast of a TV show doing the roles in it, dramatized audio book. Yeah, let me know in the chat what you think. I mean, I would listen to it, absolutely. Sunstorm saying Harry did a great job as Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, fun fact about Harry Lloyd, if you didn't know, he's the great 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 grandson of Charles Dickens. There you go. Fun fact. Right. Let's go to a question from Rustler. No, we did that one. Commander Ray, what did you want to see in this first episode? What will be the barometers you look for when gauging if this show will be something A, that's good, and B, that you'll enjoy watching, particularly Dunk and Egg and their relationship? Well, I think, at the risk of going all George R. R. Martin on this, I'm gonna go to an anecdote, because I think this this kind of sums up for me what I want. And I think many people have had this experience, so hopefully it chimes with some of you. I remember 25 years ago, that's how old I am, um, uh, going into cinema with a whole bunch of friends. I took 20 friends with me to go and watch the Fellowship of the Ring. I was really excited um, that this finally, my favorite book was being put onto film. I'd seen the trailers, I'd read Empire magazine, and the pictures looked amazing. But I was nervous. I was nervous because not just because I brought a whole load of friends with me, but this was an amazing book. Were they going to do it justice? And I can still remember the feeling of sitting there, and it starts, and you get Kate Blanchett's voice going, and you get the sort of the background history, all of that stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, yes, this is good, this is good, this is good. And then it sort of cuts, and then a bit after you get the Shire, and you get the Shire music, and you can hear the Shire music in your head even now. And you see the rolling green hills, and you see the Hobbit holes. Um, and it was just like, yeah, they got the feel right. And from that moment on, I can remember I sat back and I just let out this pent up breath of air, because it was like they've got it right. And it didn't matter if they mucked up huge amounts of other things. And frankly, if you, as a Tolkien nerd, if you go to the first hour or so of that film, the amount of changes they make is huge. But they brought me in with the feel of it. They understood the nature of the assignment, and that is what I want from Dunk and Egg. Is that I want this to feel like Dunk and Egg, not like Game of Thrones, not like House of the Dragon, not like anything else. I want this to feel like Dunk and Egg. It should be lighter. It should um, it should make you love these characters. It should make you absolutely root for Dunk. It should make you laugh, but also it should be taking you along with this great story. Um, and I think, I will know in the first 10 minutes or so if that feel is right. I think they've got it. I think everything they've said suggests that they've got the feel right. Everything I've seen suggests they've got the feel right, but that's what I'm going for most. Um, as for a few sort of specifics, I think the whimsy and humor of it, I really want that. Um, the I mean, you asked about sort of the Dunk and Egg relationship. A lot of it is the same things. If you go back, that they say the same things to each other a huge amount. I'll give you a clout around the ear. He's right there. Get him. And it's like the same kind of things happen in different scenarios. I want that to just feel natural, and also I I want a natural way. I have heard how they do this, but I want a natural way for showing Dunk's interior monologue, because this is all from his POV, effectively. Um, all three stories have just been from his POV. Apparently, George R. R. Martin did consider partway through, I think the third one, whether he should put some of this from Egg's perspective, but decided no, actually, this works best from Dunk's perspective. And that's his interior monologue, him thinking through things, him chiding himself when he does stuff he thinks is stupid. I want that captured well. Um, some quick flick. Lucas Banner saying, "Is it really released this weekend? I wasn't ready for it." Yes, absolutely. Sunday night in America, Monday morning, early morning over here in Europe. Um, Uh, Justin Marino saying Lord of the Rings is legitimately one of the best adaptations book to movie, even if it isn't completely accurate to the vibe is what matters. Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's the feel. Um, yeah. So Okay, let's go to a question from Ranabe Mitra saying, "Salutations, Robert and Dan the dog. I hope you're well and excited for Michael Carrick's return to the club." I love Michael Carrick. I'm finding it hard to get excited about too many Manchester United things right now. Wanted to do a pulse check and gauge whether you feel this season needs a little bit of Blackfire references or not. Aziz thinks so, and other folks in the fandom add that the reshoots that took place for this season were probably aimed towards adding Blackfire and continuity references for the second and third season. In this regard, we could be introduced slightly to Bloodraven too. I've already covered Bloodraven, so the Blackfire Rebellion, yeah. So this was, as we said, this wasn't really a concept in George R. R. Martin's mind when writing this. So it doesn't have references. But when we go to stories 2 and 3, huge amounts of references. So we should get some, and I think there will be some. And I've frankly heard that there are some, but not huge amounts. Now, as I say, the first Blackfire Rebellion took place 13 years ago, which means that it is not this immediate thing that we're in the aftermath of, but people are still living through the ramifications of it. Lots of people were exiled. Half of houses, because basically the continent split in two. Seven Kingdoms split in two. Half the people were on one side, half the people were on the other. And of those half that lost, a huge chunk left. So we've got new lords, we've got new people taking over places, we've got houses being punished by having stuff taken away from them. The geopolitical landscape was hugely changed because of it. And that will still be playing through even 13 years later, because we see it playing through even later with the Swan Sword, for example. When you get, they're always talking about what happened there in Blackfire Rebellion and what the implications were for them. That will be the case here. So it's not a part of the plot with the Hedge Knights. The plot is not around whether this person was on this side of Blackfire Rebellion or that side. That's not what this is about. But it would make sense if we get a couple of little references. And frankly, I think it should. I don't think there should be foreshadowing about the Great Spring Sickness or anything along those lines. Those things in worlds were surprises to people. Nobody was expecting that to be happening. But sort of a few mentions here and there of the Blackfires, so that people go, "Oh, so what's that?" And it's sort of lodged in the back of their brain. And because this will be happening on an annual cycle, so much of what we've had recently from TV shows is like 2-3 year gaps between seasons. This is back to a good old 1 year gap. So people should remember it a little bit more. Martin S. Great to see you, Martin. Saying, "Evening, Robert. The intro to Fellowship of the Ring is great. Last alliance of elves, men and elven marched against the armies of Mordor, and on the slopes of Mount Doom they fought for the freedom of Middle-earth." Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that could have gone so wrong. We're just trying to give the backstory. But it came out as a masterclass, partly because of the narration from Cate Blanchett. I think was great, partly because the effort that went into the acting, their character. We see people. Isildur doesn't really appear again, but we know we've got him in our mind because he will get mentioned again, and all of that built up, not just like, here's a bit of information you should know, but it actually showed us the stakes. Right from the off, it showed us the stakes that then allowed us, when we shifted over to the calm of the Shire, it allowed us, and then we found out about the ring, it allowed us to understand what was going on. This wasn't just, oh, that's a pretty ring. We understood as an audience what was going on. Right, let's go to a question from Diego Godoy. What are you most excited to see in Dunk and Egg? How do you think they will convey the large Targaryen family tree in order to provide enough details but not confuse the audience? Yeah, so I think I've talked a bit about what I'm looking forward to, but I think it's a valid question. How do you make sure that you give enough information about the Targaryens without kind of overloading people about who all these different Targaryens are? And I think the short answer is that the way I think they will play this is, first of all, limiting the number of Targaryens. They're not going to tell us about all of the Targaryens that are out there, just the ones who appear in this story. So that's the first thing. There might be vague mentions about the king, but we're not going to meet the king, so we don't need to know huge amounts about the king, for example. But there are two interrelations that we need to understand. The first is, spoilers again, Egg's family. Maekar and his sons. That's the first bit that we need to be understanding. These are brothers, and that's their dad. That's the thing we need to get. And then there's another brother somewhere. We could, if they wish to make the link across to Game of Thrones, then they could do that. But that is the key thing. We've got a father with three sons who we're going to be meeting, who are all very different. And then we've got the Targaryens, who are basically the royal family, which is Baelor. So the key point is that Maekar and his sons, they are royalty, but they're not close to the throne. None of them think that they're ever going to be anywhere near the Iron Throne. They're Targaryens, but they're so far down. They are Egg, and this is the why he was known as Aegon the Unlikely. He was at the time of the Hedge Knight. He was the fourth son of a fourth son. He should not have sat on the Iron Throne. He should be a long, long way away from that. It's only because everybody died. I've got my theories about why that is, but that's for another video. Right, you've got the king, and then you've got his heir, and his heir has got two children who would inherit after him. And then even if all of those people died, then you've got another two sons before you get to the Maekar. And even if you got to Maekar, then there's three sons in the way before you get to Egg. That's how far away Egg was from the throne. So we don't have to make sure that the audience understand all of the detail of that. We just need to know these Targaryens, it's a family. They're royal, but they're not close to the throne. This is the throne, the Iron Throne. This is the heir. Orion's Orcas saying, "Hi Robert, haven't read the story, but look forward to your analysis and live streams." Good, thank you. Having read A Song of Ice and Fire and the story based on House of the Dragon, it's new and I can't help thinking it's a good thing. Being kept in suspense over one and knowing the outcome of the other makes this a different and welcome experience. Yeah, well, I'm pleased. I'm not sure what I can add to that, really. It's fun in as much as we do know roughly where this is going with Dunk and Egg. We know the outlines of this story, but we don't know all the details. And you do wonder the extent to which we're going to learn about this through Fire and Blood Part 2 or the Dunk and Egg stories first. I would quite like to read the Dunk and Egg stories first, I have to admit. If George R. R. Martin devoted the next, and these are short, let's not forget, these are short stories. If he devoted the next 2 or 3 years of his life just to doing the Dunk and Egg stories, I would be okay with that, personally. Brian Valco, do you think George R. R. Martin originally had Egg being the seventh son of the seventh son, but couldn't think of that many more AR ending names, so cut it down to the fourth son of the fourth son? I mean, it's a nice idea, but I think the point is that he's a long way from the Iron Throne. I mean, I dread to even think where he is at this point in time. What might he be? The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think at this point in time he's probably the 10th in line to the throne, something like that. And then other people will have children, which will make. I mean, might be even more than 10th. Yeah, I think he's even more than 10th. But when those people between him and the Iron Throne in the line of succession have children, that pushes him even further down. Marcus Montgomery, I sent you an email about a Jack and Hagar theory. I would love if you take a look at it in your free time. Thank you. I'll try and do that. And I have to say, honestly, I don't. I wish I had time to look at all of the different theories and things that people send through. If I did, I wouldn't have time to write videos. I will. Thank you very much for the super chat. I will. I will take a look at that one though. I will reply that. I will dig it out. Maura Lee saying, any word on when the Lord of the Rings of Power will be coming out with a new season? Nothing official is the short answer. They finished filming, so we're looking at, and previously they've taken a good year or so in post-production. I think the smart money is on November-ish this year. If it slips a bit into the beginning of next year, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think that's what we're looking at. Joe Magician saying, I think he's 14th at the time. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to work my way through the family tree. I think there was a couple of kids that I was thinking of. Yeah, I trust you. I've not got the family tree in front of me, but that sounds about right. Let's go to a question from Flame G. Hello, Robert. I was reading the story but haven't got far. I watched your video about Dunk and whether he was actually a knight and that perhaps he wasn't. I support the theory that he probably wasn't a real knight, but I wonder if he ever told Egg. Would that have had any impact on the future of the story? Perhaps his foot wouldn't have been important for the future of the story. So I think his foot is important for the story, regardless of his state of knighthood. That's not that's not the crucial thing there. The crucial thing there is that his foot, in his mind, was saved at the cost of a crown prince or a prince of the realm. And is there a time when his foot would be able to save the realm, or implication being a prince of the realm? So that's what that is tying, and that's not directly to do with whether or not he actually is a knight. So I think the foot thing is irrespective of that. As for going forward, what we find in these stories is that Dunk seems to be okay on a day-to-day basis with, like, yeah, I'm a knight, that's okay. As he doesn't like saying it, but increasingly people just assume that he is a knight, and that's fine. What he stumbles over is when people ask him details of it or ask him to do something that only a knight should be able to do. So, for example, in this story, to knight someone, because only a knight can knight somebody else, and or a king, but he is asked to knight someone, and he clearly does not want to do it. The clear implication, I think, is because he is not a knight, and he realizes that it's one thing him going around knowing that he's not a knight and pretending to be a knight is a completely different thing knowing that he has made someone else a knight, but they're not really a knight because he's not really a knight, but they don't know that. That, I think, is something that he really struggles with. So, when might this come out? I think it would come out if he reaches a point where he needs to do a thing that only a knight could do. And I do wonder whether this is joining the King's Guard. Only a knight is allowed to be a member of the King's Guard, and I do wonder whether he would. We've obviously got Sandor Clegane is another issue. We could talk about that another time, but only a knight can be a member of the King's Guard. And I think Dunk would struggle with the idea of him becoming a member of the King's Guard, because if he's not a true knight. However, he is only going to become a member of the King's Guard if he is appointed there by his friend Egg as Aegon V. As Aegon V is a king, he would be able to knight Dunk. I wonder whether we will get a beautiful moment, a little bit of an echo of what we saw in Game of Thrones with the knighting of Brienne, where after everything he's been through, he is knighted by Egg, but in secret. So finally, he's able to be the knight that he has been all that time. If you want sort of an echo in another fantasy world, Geralt of Rivia was not actually of Rivia, but then when you get towards the end of his tale in the books, he is knighted of Rivia. So he actually gets the title that he's been pretending to have all of this time. So that, I think, is the kind of the echo that we might be getting there. Joe Magician saying he's 11th on second count. I miscounted some grandchildren born after Egg, like Magor. As I say, I don't have the family tree in front of me. I'm going to bow to your superior knowledge, but let's go with 11th. As I say, my first guess was 10th. Then you said 14th. Now you're saying 11th. I'm happy. It's somewhere around that area, but I'm very happy to say it's 11th. Martin S saying, book-wise, how many do you think the army of this is a Lord of the Rings question. How many do you think the army of the last alliance of elves and men was reaching the Black Gate? After Orifer messed up. Was it 100,000? I wish I could give you an answer to that one live. I'm afraid I can't. I would have to go and have a research. This is actually something I will at some point do a video on, not just army sizes there, but about the last alliance, because I think a lot of people are intrigued by it. I will try my best to answer that. Remind me in the next live stream. I'll do I'll figure it out and let you know. Let's go. Julius Tosh saying, have zero expectations and few reservations. Hopefully it's a pleasant surprise. Some call it nitpicking, but Dunk needs to be bigger. Use the Lord of the Rings camera angles. Yeah, it's tedious. It is tedious. I mean, he's... So Duncan the Tall should be basically 7 foot tall. And the actor playing him is 6'5". Now, 6'5", for those who don't use... who are more metrically inclined, that's just a touch under 2 meters. So he's pretty tall. And it's just that Sir Duncan the Tall was very tall. Now, they found a better actor. I mean, from what I've seen, the actor is perfectly cast. The only thing is that maybe he could be a bit tall. He is already very tall. Could they do tedious camera angles, forced perspective stuff like they did in Lord of the Rings? Yeah, they could. That would take a lot more effort, I think. As you say, it would be tedious. Personally, yes, that would be great, but I'm all right with it. The mountain wasn't 8 foot tall in Game of Thrones, and I think we all got that he was still pretty massive. So yeah, I think I'm okay with it. I see your point, and if they had the time to do it, that would have been fantastic. But I suspect they don't. For my peoples, perhaps I missed it. Will you be pre-gaming on Sundays? As in, will I be doing a pre-show live stream? No, I think is the short answer on this one. So, let me tell you how I'm going to cover this. The reason is that it airs at 3 o'clock my time, in the morning, and that would mean going live at like 1 a.m. or something. My plan is I'll be doing these normal Thursday live streams. They won't be specifically about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I'm sure questions will come up. What I will do though after every episode is I will ask my patrons if they've got any questions, and then I will do a pre-record live stream going through those questions and answering those questions, and then I will upload that at some point on, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday probably. And we'll see how we go on that one. So patrons, if you watch an episode, have a look out over on Patreon. I'll probably give people like 24 hours or so to come up with the questions, and then I'll record them all, put them all in a Q&A, and then upload that. So that is the plan. Andrew K saying it's quite durable. The forced perception thing. There was even an NBA basketball series on HBO lately about the Lakers that used mostly normal height actors with camera tricks. Well, I bow to your superior knowledge. In that case, yeah, maybe they could have done it. Let's go to a question from Corvus Codex. Good evening, Robert, Dan, and all. My question is about the translation of Dunk, an older teenager on page, to a grown man on HBO. Some of Dunk's naivete in the novellas can be attributed to his youth and inexperience. Having Duncan portrayed as an adult has me worried that he will come across as simple rather than a sheltered youth navigating Westeros alone. Also, justice for Steely Pate. So our 5'1" king is being played by a 6'5" giant. Comic relief will have to come from somewhere. Okay, so Steely Pate. Yeah, so Steely Pate is described in the books as being about 5 foot tall, I think. The actor is not 5 foot tall. He's a lot bigger. I mean, I'm not. I don't think Steely Pate is a big enough and important enough character for this. I absolutely understand the force. Sir Duncan the Tall. The whole point is he's tall. So if it's possible to make him look even taller through forced perspectives or whatever, then great. Steely Pate, I just want a good actor for. He should appear in a handful of scenes, and that's it. But about the age of the actor. So don't know exactly. Peter Cuffley is, I think he's late 20s. Now, Dunk, we don't know his exact age. It's fair to say. In the Hedge Knight, but something like 16, 17, 18, maybe. By the time we get to the Mystery Knight, he should be about 20-ish. So we're talking somebody in their late teens to, by the time we get into season 3, about 20. And I agree. Some of his naivety is that he's just not experienced in the world. He's still young, and a lot of the fun of Dunk, in particular, is like how he's clearly awkward around women. He doesn't really know how to react to them, and he doesn't understand a lot of social situations. Now, is the fact that the actor playing him is older than that, does this kind of undermine that? Well, to a degree, yes, although I don't think he looks, might just be me, I don't think the actor looks, when he's there as Dunk, I don't think he looks his age. I think he looks a lot younger. But still, yes, he's not 16. I think the fact is that Dunk is naive, and he's not the cleverest. A lot of his wisdom and knowledge about the world is repeating. When you read the stories, it's repeating back these kind of aphorisms and sayings that Sir Arlen has taught him. And that is how he sort of goes through his life, even as a 20-year-old. So, yes, I think something will be lost, but I don't think this is something that I'm concerned about for the character. I think the way that I've seen this from the trailers is that he comes across as innocent, and you can be innocent in older ages, not just because you haven't experienced all of the world. Let's go to a question from James Horner, saying, "Hello, Robert. I hope you are doing well." I am, thank you. With the imminent release of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I pulled out my copy of the book for a reread. It is a fantastic read and a really good entry point. Something that occurred to me that hadn't before is that Makar must have received one hell of a concussion in the Trial of Seven. Why on earth did he think it was a good idea to send his son off with Dunk, an almost complete stranger who had already shown a reckless disregard for his own safety? Plus, Bittersteel must have still had agents in the Seven Kingdoms who would almost certainly have tried to kidnap Egg if they were to discover who he was. A shaved head and a nickname seem a pretty thin disguise to me. I would love to have been a fly on the wall when he told the rest of the family what he had done. Okay, so there's a few things here. Let's cover the disguise thing. Dunk is, as we've been having a little bit of a to and fro, I'm going to say 11th in line to the throne. Pretty anonymous to the wider populace. By which I mean, I would struggle to name the 11th in line to the British throne right now. And this is in an era of TV and internet. Without that, would anyone in the country know what the 11th in line to the throne looks like? No. Would they be expecting to see someone of the member of the royal family wandering around as a squire to a hedge knight? No. So the disguise, I think, is that bit works for me. I have to say that the biggest part of the disguise is the fact no one is expecting a Targaryen to be in that situation. So, and as long as he did shave his head, the biggest issue with his disguise is the way that the Egg, he constantly says stuff he really shouldn't. He gives away information that no normal squire should have access to, that kind of thing. So that I think is the biggest issue, rather than what he looks like. As for why did Makar let him, so at the end of the story, Dunk basically says, "Yeah, I'm gonna take him as, with your leave, I'm gonna take him as my squire." And I guess, yes, on the face of it, that seems like an odd thing for Makar to do. But the context of this is that this has been a hugely traumatic time. We've seen so Makar, as well as the fact that his brother has died and he's being blamed for it. Also, he's had a huge problem with Aerion, one of his sons, who's just been horrible in this, and he's going to have to exile him. And then he's got Diran, another brother, who another one of his sons, who kind of run off and is just sort of sat in a pub getting drunk. And this is he had people out looking for him. This was hard work. And so this is what we read. If you've got that context in the back of your mind, this is what we read. Makar says in response to Dunk, he says, Did the trial addle your wits, man? Aegon is a prince of the realm, the blood of the dragon. Princes are not made for sleeping in ditches and eating hard salt beef. He saw Dunk hesitate. What is it you're afraid to tell me? Say what you will, sir. And then Dunk responds. He says, Deeren never slept in a ditch, I'll wager, Dunk said very quietly. And all the beef that Aerion ever ate was thick and rare and bloody, like as not. Maekar Targaryen, Prince of Summerhall, regarded Dunk of Fleabottom for a long time, his jaw working silently beneath his silvery beard. Finally, he turned and walked away, never speaking a word. Dunk heard him riding off with his men. So that's the moment. He's saying that Maekar's saying no. No, you're not going to have my son here as a squire. You're not going to be going out and showing him the highways and byways of the Seven Kingdoms. That's not how you bring up a prince. And Dunk basically says, well, look at his two older brothers. Aerion you brought up like a prince. Look what he's turned into. Deeren you brought up like a prince. Look what he's turned into. And he kind of leaves the thing unsaid is that you might as well try this. If you want one of your children to be growing up to be the kind of son you want, then why not? So that's the kind, and George R. Martin, again, I think it's really well written. He leaves it unsaid. And Maekar doesn't say yes. He just goes out and makes it happen. So with this, we say that's why. And the other thing is, for all of he's a prince of the realm. Yes, but as we've already established, he was 11th, or as of this moment in time, 10th in line to the throne. It's still a long way down. It wasn't as if he's not like, you're risking the future of House Targaryen if something happened to him, fine. We've lost the fourth son of a fourth son. It's not the worst case. He was so Maekar was so convinced, or the Targaryens were so convinced that they didn't need these youngest of Maekar's children. They sent one off to Old Town to become a maester. That was Aemon. So yeah, they felt they could spare him, and Dunk basically just guilt tripped Maekar in saying, "Well, look what happened to your two other sons there. What did they turn into?" So yeah, I think it was a really good bit of writing. Let's go. Adam Geets saying, general song. Okay, so yeah, we've got. Hang on. Oh, two more questions from my patrons. Both of which are slightly more broad. A Song of Ice and Fire questions. Now is a good time if you've got more questions about Nine of the Seven Kingdoms, or more broadly, now is a good time to drop them into the chat. I will try and pick up as many as possible. Adam Geets saying, if the sword Dawn is Lightbringer, isn't it strange that the home of that sword the home of the sword that ends the long night is on the other side of the continent? I would say no. I don't think it's strange. Myself, if you had a sword, let's say Lightbringer, and I don't think it was this simple, but let's say Lightbringer was the sword that ended the long night, and let's say you thought that the long night won't happen again, but potentially again for a long time, but potentially maybe it might happen at some point. We just need to keep it safe somewhere. Where do you keep it? Do you keep it right up as close as possible to the potential enemies in the long night, or do you put it somewhere safe, quite a long way away, that they won't be able to get to? I think you would do the latter. Now, an observation I've made, as I say, this isn't a worked up theory, but it's an observation I've made in the past, is that this isn't unique in its placement. In as much as if you asked yourself, what do you need? And if you're going to be fighting the others again, well, the Weirwood network clearly important in some way. Where do we think the heart of the Weirwood network is? The Isle of Faces. It's on an island. You're going to need dragonglass. Dragonglass comes from a mine. Where's that mine? Dragonstone, an island. You've got your sword, Dawn. Where are you going to put that? On an island. So there's, and also potentially you've got another thing, which is the high tower, which allegedly you can see the wall from the high tower. And there's definitely some more plot there we need to understand. That's on an island. So all of these things which seem like they might be important are on islands. So I don't personally have a problem with the idea of Dawn. If you were trying to think of a place for it to be, you would put it with an ancient family on an island the other side of the continent. Actually feels to me like the kind of sensible place you would put it. The chat is now trying to work out who the 11th in line to the British throne is. Peredo Gladioli suggesting maybe it's now Princess Eugenie. It's possible, and I think this is the point: is that if we don't know, then people wouldn't know in those times who the 10th or 11th. Brian Valco saying King Harold V of Norway is 81st in line. Okay. I absolutely believe you on that one. Let's go to class now, actually just picking up on the islands thing, saying most of the islands in the book are also eye lands with lots of watchers and even the physical shape of eyes. Yeah, so we've got the Isle of Faces, which has got the eyes on them and so on. So Stevie O, last question from one of my patrons. Please do drop some more questions in the chat if you want me to pick up on them. So Stevie O saying George R. R. Martin has stated that the myths and legends and history of the world are not necessarily reliable. I think he said something like that. Given the apparent conflation of the prince that was promised and Azor Ahai, would it be reasonable that this could also be the original last hero of the North, so Galadon of Morn, Sword of the Morning, and the other legendary heroes that over time became localized versions of an original hero? Perhaps it was Sir Clarence Crabbe all along. All right. I mean, so George R. R. Martin has said something along those lines. So what he has, I haven't got the direct quote, but what he has said is that the legends that we have in this world of ice and fire should be treated as legends, not literal historical truth. We should treat them. That they may well be based on truth, but we should treat them in the same way that we might treat legends in our world. So I don't think he used this exact example, but King Arthur, for example, there surely is some truth in the legends of King Arthur. Surely there was some strong king at some point in 5th century southwest England. Perhaps he was called Arthur. Perhaps he did have some famed knights around him. These kind of things may well be true. But should we take all of the legends of King Arthur and say, well, that is exactly what happened? Well, no, we should not. And that is the same kind of idea that George R. R. Martin wants us to be taking into our understanding of the legends in his world. So when we're looking at The Last Hero, when we're looking at Azor Ahai, when we're looking at the Battle for the Dawn, all of those things to do with the Long Night, that there surely is some truth in there. But we shouldn't be taking them as literal written down histories of what happened, with maybe a few changes here or there. So, with all that said, you're saying, what about other characters? Might these also, these kind of original heroes, might they also be the same thing? They might be. They might be the same character. This last hero, this Azor Ahai. Might they kind of just be reflections of that? It's possible, but I don't think we should say that the only thing which could produce legends is the Long Night. We've got thousands of years of history going on here. And during that time, there may well be other events that caused legendary figures to happen, and then they get added to. Maybe they did start there, but then they got extra stuff added in. There's a lot of stories, particularly in places like the Vale, where you get these legends of these great ancient heroes who are knights who worship the Seven. And the Maesters point out they can't have done, because the Andals didn't arrive until a lot later. And so what the Andals did was they adapted the legends that were already there to suit their beliefs and practices. So that is the kind of feel that George R. Martin is wanting. And I think with that, let's go and have a quick flick through the chat. Carcarsnark saying, check out the Caleb Howell channel for lots of fun or info on the real historical Arthur. I don't know that channel, but do check it out. Woodruff Wolves, what Easter eggs for Fire and Blood and Game of Thrones would you like to see in the show? I'd like to see Baelor use the cat's paw dagger as a nod to the past and future of the story. That would be quite fun. I mean, I think let's get, actually, this gives me a chance just to sort of riff off into canon for one moment. George R. Martin is not in the same place he was when he talked about this in, for example, an interview he did with History of Westeros a few years ago. But there, he was very clear that there were two canons. There was book canon and there was show canon. And show canon should be the same between all of the shows. So when we're talking about House of the Dragon, that exists in the same canon as Game of Thrones, which is why you get the link across to Daenerys, and it's in the cat's paw dagger is that same. Wasn't called the cat's paw dagger, obviously, in House of the Dragon, but that is the same one that makes an appearance in House of the Dragon, and then much later in Game of Thrones. So I like this idea. My feeling is that in world that should be held by the king. This seems to be a thing which is passed down king to king, so that currently should be in Diren's possession. But yeah, are there any kind of night nods or stuff that they could do? I mean, I like the idea that we will get mentions across, and because George R. R. Martin includes this in the stories, two characters we know in Game of Thrones. So we will get in season 3, we should get an early view, for example, of Walder Frey. And we should get mentions at least of Maester Aemon. And so increasingly we should be getting this kind of nod to characters that we know. That, I think, is the kind of thing. Bloodraven is obviously another classic example. So that's the kind of thing I would like to see, is referencing through to characters that we know, rather than, I mean, could we see them? I'd like to see the cat's paw dagger. Maybe we will. So Blackfire, the sword, will be gone, but when we do see Bloodraven, we should see Dark Sister, which will be another little nod across. Andrew K saying, I've seen enough of that dagger. Yeah, that dagger. Well, fair. I mean, the dagger shouldn't be the central thing of all of this, but it might be a nice little show nod. CBH asking, would I rather have George R. Martin write all 12 Duncan Egg novellas or finish A Song of Ice and Fire? Well, I'd like both. But I mean, if I had to choose between the two, it would be A Song of Ice and Fire. But I think from what he said in the interview that we were looking at a little bit earlier, I think the better chance we've got of getting both is for him to do Duncan Egg first, and just get all that creativity done and out, rather than he's clearly struggling with the world, with A Song of Ice and Fire. let him do other things for a little bit. Andrew K saying, I hope that Knight of the Seven Kingdoms leans in with Dunk and Egg, that the duo each fills gaps in each other's knowledge and perspectives, given their respective origins and experiences. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Tommy of Fain saying, yeah, it's like, move on, guys. Sometimes a dagger is just a dagger, as they say. Secret Agent saying, can't stay, but happy I could for a while. Thank you. Great to see you. Weirwood saying the dagger should appear in someone's belt and not mentioned at all. I think if it does appear, I don't want it to be a thing. I just want it to be like oh, look at that. And there are two options, either in a king or Bloodraven. Lady Forlorn, yeah, that would be cool. Uh, so if we see Willie Biggs saying, if we see a young Walder Frey in the show, they should still use actor David Bradley with a young hairstyle. I mean, I like it. I mean, when we're talking young, we're very young. But yeah, it's a nice thought. Stephanie Frederick saying, I suspected he has written the She-Wolves of Winterfell and didn't want to admit it. Now he can. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since he's mentioned that. It has to be said. So the She-Wolves of Winterfell, they were heading north at the end of story 3. Dunk and Egg were heading north towards the wall, and so the idea was that the next book would be based at Winterfell. George R. R. Martin started writing it. The working title, The She-Wolves of Winterfell, it won't end up being called that. I mean, his convention is based on the titles that he's told us, is generally to have a description of Dunk at that moment in time. Is he a hedge knight? Is he a swan sword? And so on. So George R. R. Martin at the time said he got about halfway into it and got a bit stuck. I don't think he used those words exactly, and so stopped. The village hero, set in the Riverlands, probably a dispute between the Blackwoods and Brackens, that he says that he's plotted out, he's mapped it out. So that was always the thing that he was going to be doing next after the She-Wolves of Winterfell. I don't think he's finished it. And in fact, it would not surprise me if the next one we get is something completely different. He did mutter. Can one mutter in a blog? He did mutter about this was 6 months or so ago. I think he talked about maybe he should do another Dunk and Egg story when they were in Dawn during that gap. When the Great Spring Sickness was going on. So maybe we'll get that. I think what I really want for him is just to get an idea that he can just do and write something quickly and get it done, and remember what it's like to get back the love of writing and finish a thing. So maybe that means he just has to drop the Winterfell idea and go for something else. Bruno CK saying, I'm relatively new here, just getting into the lore more and more. Welcome. Will there ever be a show where we will see more about the Blackfire Rebellion or Daemon himself? We've not. So let's try and talk about the state of things with the TV shows. So the exact number that are being considered sort of goes up and down all the time, but there are several that are out there. From what we've heard just today, it seems as if the next thing is going to be Aegon's invasion. Then possibly the animated voyages of Corlys Velaryon. There are other things. There's an animated YT show that has been talked about a bit. There's the Nymeria, the story of Nymeria, that has gone through 2 or 3 different prospective showrunners. And obviously we've now heard about this potential sequel set in Essos, potentially even with Arya. There are others, though. There are others that we do not yet know about. The Blackfire Rebellion is quite possibly one of them. The issue they will have, I think, is they do not want to be going over ground that they're covering in other shows. So they won't. The Blackfire Rebellions, they won't want to be doing. Blackfire Rebellions come the second onwards will be covered in the Duncan Egg stories. Might they do, and I would love this because I think this is such a fantastic period, might they do the period of the Great Bastards, as they're known, people like Bloodraven and Daemon, leading up to the Blackfire Rebellion? Yes, they might. But they have been, as much as is possible thus far, trying to stick to things they've got George R. R. Martin he's written about in detail. Now, that may well shift as we're heading towards this world where George R. R. Martin isn't actively involved in every single one. He was overextending himself, I suspect. He said he was hugely involved in every single potential spin-off. I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. But for ones based back in the past, where possible, they've done Duncan Egg, which we've got stories for, and the Dance of the Dragons, which we've got. I mean, he wrote novellas about, and then that expanded out into Fire and Blood. So that's probably the next bit that we've got the most about. After that, probably comes Aegon's Invasion. So they're trying to do the things they've got the most source material on. If we get Blood and Fire and Blood Part 2, then yeah, I would put that on the list. There's also we constantly hear possibilities about Robert's Rebellion. I think we're most likely now to be seeing that, or at least part of the build up to it, through the stage play rather than anything else. Right. Who do you suspect, CBH, who do you suspect are some of Dunk's descendants in the main series of A Song of Ice and Fire? Well, George R. Martin more than teased it. Brienne, definitely. I think Hodor seems quite likely. I also have a sneaky suspicion, though I don't think George R. Martin has confirmed this, that Small Paul at the Wall is one of them, not only because he's very tall, but because he also, I think he says it about himself, or maybe someone says it to him, Small Paul thick as a castle wall, which is very on the nose. So yeah, I think that's what we've got. I don't buy into the theory that the Cleganes are or anything like that, but I think we've got 2 definites and 1 possible. And I think with that, I'm going to start drawing this one to a close. So patrons, thank you for your questions. Moderators, thank you so much. Could you people show the moderators a little bit of love? I would hugely appreciate that. If you are watching this, by the way, if you're watching this on live on X or Facebook, welcome. It's great to see you. I've been answering questions from YouTube, but as and when I figure out the technology, maybe I'll be able to answer some questions that get put across from Facebook or X as well. Hopefully we'll be able to figure that one out at some point soon. This will, as all of my live streams are, this will be appearing ad-free over on In Deep Sleep, which, if you've never come across it, is just this audio. People have told me for a long time they use these to go to sleep. I've decided just to lean into it. And so we're this audio and then some nice sort of moving imagery, something like a crackling log fire and the sounds of that. And then once I finish doing this, then it sort of fades to black, or slowly the sort of the ambient noise continues for 8 hours, no adverts. And so if you just want something to put on and then go to sleep to, then that's for you. A reminder of what I said at the way through this stream, I will be doing Q&As from my patrons. If you want to join Patreon, by the way, the best way to support this channel is to become a patron. Thank you if you would like to. There's a link down there somewhere. So patrons' questions after every episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I will turn them, as many of them as I can, into a Q&A pre-recorded stream, which I will upload at some point on, let's say, Wednesday. See how we go. So patrons, do look out for that. The main channel videos are going to keep coming, and so I've got one coming up soon on how do tourneys work in Westeros. Well, what's the actual deal there? There seem to be lots of different models. How does that actually operate? So if you're interested in that, that will be coming up soon. But I think what I will say now is, if you are watching this on YouTube, then appearing here-ish will be a link to other live streams that I've done. Appearing here-ish will be a link to my Patreon page, which is the best way to support this channel if you wish to do so. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care. I'm really looking forward to the show. And I will speak to you on the other side. Bye.